The great chamber of the Galactic Court had seen the rise and fall of empires older than most stars. Its walls were made from living crystal that carried whispers of ancient judgments, and its ceiling opened into a slow-turning map of the known universe. Delegates from 1,000 worlds filled the circular tiers, their forms strange and beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Some were made of light, some of metal, some of soft drifting vapor. All of them were silent. At the very center of the chamber stood a single human. Commander Elias Ward kept his hands relaxed at his sides, though every instinct in his body told him he was standing in the most dangerous place in existence. He had faced pirates in the dark between systems, watched ships burn, and walked across battlefields where the air itself tasted like iron. None of that felt as heavy as the quiet pressing down on him now. Across from him, elevated on a throne grown from white starstone, sat Queen Althara. She was tall even while seated, her presence stretching through the chamber like gravity. Silver blue light flowed slowly through the patterns of her skin, and a crown of delicate branching crystal hovered just above her head, turning in silence. Her eyes held the calm weight of someone who had ruled for longer than human history had been written. To her right stood Princess Saraleth. Every story Elias had heard about her had failed to capture the truth. She seemed less like a person and more like a perfect idea shaped into living form. Soft light followed her movements. The air itself felt warmer near her, as if reality wished to please her. Across the galaxy, alliances had formed, and wars had ended because she had smiled, and she was looking only at him. Elias forced himself to breathe slowly. He reminded himself of Earth, of oceans moving under open sky, of wind through ordinary trees, of people laughing in small, crowded streets. He held those memories tightly, because they were the only things in this chamber that felt real. A low voice echoed through the court, translated instantly into every known language. "Commander Elias Ward of Humanity?" said the Queen. The sound was gentle, but the chamber seemed to bend around it. "You understand why you have been summoned?" "Yes," Elias said. His voice sounded small compared to the vastness around him, but it did not shake. He was proud of that, even if no one else noticed. A slow ripple of movement passed through the gathered delegates. Some leaned forward, others dimmed their glow to focus. Many species had crossed unimaginable distances just to witness this moment. History had a way of gathering crowds. The Queen studied him in silence for several long seconds. Elias had the strange feeling she was not only looking at his face, but at every choice he had ever made. "My daughter," she said at last, "has offered you the sacred bond." The words carried weight far beyond their sound. In the empire of Althara, the sacred bond was not romance alone. It was unity between species, a promise of shared future, protection, and power. Civilizations had risen from dust after receiving it. None had ever refused. "You were given time to consider," the Queen continued. "You were given honor beyond measure. You were given a place beside eternity." The chamber grew even quieter, if such a thing were possible. "And yet," she said softly, "you declined." No anger touched her voice. That was what frightened Elias most. He felt every eye in the galaxy resting on him, some curious, some confused, some already certain he was a fool. He thought of Saralith again. Not the glowing perfection before him, but the moments no one else had seen. The way she asked questions, like a child discovering the universe for the first time. The careful way she tried to understand human music, even when the sounds were rough and imperfect. The loneliness hidden behind endless grace. He cared about her. That was the truth. But caring was not the same thing. "Yes," Elias said quietly. "I declined." A murmur spread through the court like distant thunder. Translators carried the sound across languages, turning disbelief into something almost physical. Several delegates shifted in agitation. One metallic figure produced a sharp ringing tone of shock. Still, the Queen did not move. "Explain," she said. The single word felt heavier than any weapon. Elias knew this moment would come. He had rehearsed speeches during long, sleepless nights aboard his ship. Carefully reasoned arguments, diplomatic phrases polished to perfection. All of them felt useless now, because the truth was simple, and simple truths were often the hardest to accept. He lifted his gaze and met the Queen's eyes directly. Gasps rippled outward. Many species considered such directness offensive, but he did not look away. "I cannot accept a bond that is not freely chosen by both sides," he said. Another wave of murmurs. Confusion, this time. The Queen's light dimmed slightly, not in anger, but in focus. "My daughter chose you," she said. "Yes," Elias answered, "but she was never allowed not to." Silence fell so suddenly it felt like the universe had stopped breathing. Seralith's expression changed. Only a little, but enough that Elias noticed. A flicker of something uncertain, something fragile. The Queen's voice remained calm, though the air had grown colder. "You suggest," she said slowly, "that my daughter lacks freedom." "I'm saying," Elias replied, choosing each word with care, "that if someone is created to be perfect, if their entire life is shaped so everyone must love them, then love stops meaning anything." Shock moved through the chamber like a visible wave. Several delegates began speaking at once, before quickly silencing themselves. One ancient being of drifting fire dimmed almost to darkness, a sign of deep disturbance. Seralith did not move at all. The Queen's eyes held Elias in place, not with force, but with attention so complete it felt like standing in bright sunlight with nowhere to hide. "For thousands of cycles," she said, "the sacred bond has united civilizations in peace. You stand alive today because my daughter offered you this gift." "I know," Elias said softly, "and I'm grateful. Yet you refuse." "Yes. Why?" The question was quiet, but it carried the weight of stars. Elias felt fear then. Real fear, cold and honest. Not fear of death, but fear of failing to explain something that mattered too much for the wrong words. He thought of Earth again. Of people choosing each other without destiny, without design, without certainty. Of messy, imperfect love that could break and heal and grow. He swallowed. "Because love isn't supposed to be guaranteed," he said. No one in the court moved.
"It's supposed to be a choice," he continued, "every day."
Even when it's hard. Even when you could walk away. The translators carried his simple human words across the chamber. Some species struggled to process the idea. Others recorded every sound with intense focus. Seralith's light flickered faintly, like a star seen through moving water. The Queen leaned back slightly on her throne. Not defeated, not angry. Thinking. "And you believe," she said, "that my daughter's feelings are not real." Elias looked at Seralith then. Really looked. "They are real," he said, "but they were never allowed to grow naturally. She was made to be loved, not to discover love." For the first time, pain showed clearly in Seralith's eyes. Elias felt it like a physical wound. Part of him wanted to take the words back, to protect her from the hurt, but lies would only build a prettier prison.
"I don't want a perfect princess who cannot fail," he said quietly.
"I want a person. Someone who can choose me, or choose someone else. Someone free." The chamber held absolute stillness. Somewhere high above, the slow map of the galaxy continued turning, unaware that history might be changing below. Time stretched. At last, Queen Althera spoke again. "She said, Her voice was softer than before, not weaker, just different. Do you understand what you risk by speaking this way? Yes. Exile from Imperial space. Loss of protection. Possible war between our peoples. I know. Still you speak.
Elias took one steady breath. Yes. The Queen studied him for a long moment that felt like standing at the edge of an ocean before a storm.
Then she asked the question that would be remembered across centuries. Human, why don't you love my daughter? No sound existed anywhere in the universe. Elias felt his heartbeat slow, each pulse clear and heavy. This was the center of everything, the point where truth could not hide behind careful language. He looked at Saralith. Her eyes were wide, not with anger, but with hope so fragile it almost hurt to see. And in that moment, Elias understood something important. This was not only about empires or philosophy or history. It was about her. He spoke gently. Because love isn't obedience. The words were simple, quiet, human, but they struck the court harder than any explosion. Silence followed, deep, endless silence that seemed to stretch beyond the chamber, beyond the palace, maybe even beyond the stars themselves. No one moved. No one spoke. No one spoke. The universe waited. And somewhere inside that silence, something had already begun to change. The silence that followed the human's words did not feel empty. It felt alive. Every being in the galactic court understood that something important had just happened, even if they could not yet explain why. The living crystal walls held the echo of his sentence, as if the chamber itself was trying to understand it. Because love isn't obedience. For most species present, the two ideas had never been separate. Loyalty, duty, and devotion were the same thing. To serve was to love. To obey was to honor. The human had just broken a belief older than many civilizations. Queen Althara did not answer immediately. She remained still on her throne of white starstone, her silver-blue light moving slowly beneath her skin like calm water, hiding deep currents. Those who knew her well understood that this quiet thinking was more dangerous than anger. Princess Saralath had not moved either, but something inside her had. For the first time in her long, perfect life, she felt unsure of herself. The feeling was small, like the faintest crack in flawless glass, yet it frightened her more than any weapon ever could. She had been created to bring certainty. Entire star systems trusted her presence because she represented harmony without doubt. Now a single human sentence had placed a question inside her heart. She did not know what to do with it. Her gaze stayed on Elias. He looked very small in the vast chamber, dressed in a simple dark uniform with no crown, no glow, no sign of greatness except the quiet way he stood without bowing. He looked ordinary, and yet nothing in the universe had ever felt more difficult to understand. The Queen finally spoke, her voice calm enough to cool burning suns. "You separate love from duty," she said. "You claim one cannot live beside the other." "I think real love can include duty," Elias answered carefully. "But it cannot be forced by it." Murmurs spread again, softer this time. Not outrage, thought. Several elder delegates signaled for translation repeats. Philosophers of distant worlds began recording new theories before the moment could pass. A being of pure mathematics shifted its glowing symbols into unfamiliar patterns. The court was not only shocked, it was curious. Queen Aelthara watched all of this without turning her head. Her attention remained fixed on the human. "You speak as if freedom is more valuable than peace," she said. Elias shook his head slightly. "No. Freedom is what makes peace real." The Queen's light dimmed a fraction, the closest sign she ever showed to surprise. "Explain." Elias felt the weight of the galaxy again. but something inside him had grown steadier. The hardest words were already spoken. What remained was truth. "On Earth," he said, "peace that comes from fear never lasts. Peace that comes from control always breaks. But when people are free to choose kindness, that peace can survive anything." Some delegates reacted with confusion. Others leaned forward with interest. A species that communicated only through color shifted into slow, thoughtful shades of blue. Sarilith listened more closely than anyone. She searched her memories for anything like what he described. She found none. Her life had always been guided, protected, perfected, every lesson chosen, every meeting planned, every success guaranteed. She had never needed to choose who to be. She had never been allowed to fail. A strange tightness formed in her chest. She realized she did not even know what failure would feel like. The thought was both terrifying and strangely beautiful. Queen Althara rose from her throne. The motion was slow, graceful, and absolute. Instantly, the entire court lowered in respect. Even the oldest beings bent their forms toward her. Power filled the chamber like rising gravity. Only Elias remained standing straight, not from defiance, from being human. The queen stepped down from the throne's light and moved closer to the center floor. Each step echoed softly across the crystal, like distant bells. When she stopped, she stood only a short distance from Elias. For the first time, the ruler of the oldest empire and the representative of the youngest faced each other as equals in height, if not in power. "You believe," she said quietly, "that my daughter is not free." Elias met her gaze. "I believe she has never been given the chance to find out." The words were gentle, but they cut deeper than any accusation. A faint sound escaped somewhere in the upper tiers. Shock, grief, maybe wonder. No one could tell. Sarilith felt the crack inside her widen. Not into pain. Into space. Room for something unknown. She stepped forward before she fully understood why. Soft light followed her movement, but it trembled slightly, as if uncertain.
"Human," she said. Her voice was beautiful, perfectly balanced, designed to bring comfort to every species that heard it.
Yet now there was a small imperfection inside the sound. Something real. "If I chose you now," she asked freely, "would you love me?" The question was simple. The entire galaxy leaned into the silence. Elias's heart ached. This was the moment he had feared most. Not anger, not punishment, but hurting someone who did not deserve pain. He answered with honesty, because anything else would destroy the truth he was trying to protect. "I don't know," he said softly. A ripple of shock moved through the court again. Sarilith did not look away. "You do not know. Or, you do not want to." "I don't know," he repeated. "Because love isn't something you decide in one moment. It grows. Slowly. Messy. Real." No one in the chamber had ever described love as messy. Sarilith felt warmth behind her eyes, a sensation she had never experienced. Imperial design did not include tears, yet emotion pressed against her perfect control, asking to exist. "For my entire life," she whispered, "everyone has loved me. I know. And you are the first who does not. No, I care about you. A lot. That's why I can't pretend." The warmth in her eyes grew stronger. She did not understand why honesty hurt and healed at the same time. Queen Althara watched her daughter carefully. Something ancient and protective moved behind the queen's calm expression. Not anger toward the human. Concern for Sarilith. The court sensed the shift. History was no longer centered on diplomacy or alliance. It had become personal. After a long silence, the queen turned slightly, addressing not just Elias but the entire gathered galaxy. For ages uncounted, she declared, the sacred bond has ensured unity. No empire joined to us has fallen. No species protected by us has perished. Her voice filled every corner of the chamber, steady as orbiting stars. And now a single human claims there is a stronger path. She looked back at Elias. Words are easily spoken, she said. Beliefs are easily declared, but truth is proven only through trial. The atmosphere tightened, expectation rising like a coming storm. Elias felt it too. This moment was becoming something larger than conversation. What kind of trial? He asked. The Queen's eyes shone with ancient light, one that tests whether freedom creates strength or only chaos. A quiet wave of energy moved through the chamber as she continued. My daughter will leave this court, the Queen said. She will walk beyond imperial protection, beyond certainty, beyond perfection. Seralith's breath caught softly. You will accompany her, the Queen told Elias. Not as diplomat, not as honored guest, as guardian. And witness. Understanding spread through the court. Gasps followed. To remove the imperial heir from protection was unthinkable. Dangerous. Possibly catastrophic. Yet the Queen's voice held no doubt. You claim love must be freely chosen, she said to the human. Then she must first be free to live and to fail. The words echoed like distant thunder. Elias felt equal parts awe and fear. This was far beyond anything he expected. The Queen was not rejecting his belief. She was testing it. If she returns stronger, the Queen said, your philosophy will be heard across the Empire. And if she doesn't? Elias asked quietly. A long silence answered him. Then humanity will learn, the Queen said at last, that some truths are too fragile for the stars. The meaning was clear. Failure would not be gentle. Seralith looked between them, her mother, eternal and powerful, and the human, uncertain and mortal. For the first time, her future was not already written. Fear rose inside her, but beneath the fear, something else. Hope. She straightened slowly, soft, trembling light becoming steady. I will go, she said. The court stirred in disbelief. Queen Alfara studied her daughter's face, searching for hesitation. She found none. Something like pride touched the Queen's ancient eyes. So it begins, she said quietly. High above, the great map of the galaxy continued its silent turning. Worlds moved. Stars burned. Empires waited without knowing why the future had just changed direction. At the center of everything stood a human and a princess who had never before been free. And far beyond the crystal walls of the court, the universe stretched wide and dangerous, filled with places where perfection could not survive, places where something real might finally grow. The departure from the imperial capital did not happen with music or celebration. No banners were raised. No public announcement was made. Only a quiet ship waited in a shadowed docking ring far from the bright ceremonial ports where royal vessels usually rested. The craft was small by imperial standards, built more for distance than display. Its surface held no glowing symbols of power, only smooth, dark metal designed to pass unnoticed through crowded trade routes and silent border regions. To most of the Empire, it would look like nothing important. That was the point. Inside the docking chamber, a handful of attendants stood in respectful silence. None spoke. None tried to offer comfort. Orders from the Queen had been clear. This journey would begin without protection, without privilege, and without certainty. Princess Seralith had never walked through a place so plain. The floor was simple alloy instead of living crystal. The air carried the scent of machinery instead of flowering light. No one bowed as she passed, because no one had been told to expect her. For the first time in her existence, she felt unnoticed. The feeling was strange and sharp and quietly beautiful. Commander Elias Ward walked a step ahead, carrying a small travel pack over one shoulder. The bag looked worn, repaired in places by careful human hands. It contained only what was necessary: tools, medical supplies, a few personal items, and nothing else. Sarileth noticed the absence of luxury. She noticed many things now. "Is this truly all you require?" she asked softly. Elias glanced back with a faint smile. "For a while, yes. You travel without servants, without ceremony, without security. Most humans do." She tried to imagine an entire species living this way, unprotected, uncertain. Free. The word still felt unfamiliar in her thoughts, like a sound from a language she had only begun to learn. They reached the ship's open ramp. Dim interior lights revealed narrow corridors and simple controls. No throne, no audience chamber, no place designed for royalty. Sarileth paused at the threshold. Behind her lay everything she had ever known. Perfect safety, endless guidance, a future already decided. Ahead waited only darkness between stars and a human who had promised nothing except honesty. Fear moved quietly through her chest. Elias did not rush her. He simply stood nearby, giving her space to choose. After a long moment, she stepped forward. The decision felt small in motion and enormous in meaning. The ramp closed with a soft mechanical sound that echoed through the docking bay, like the end of one life and the beginning of another. The ship left the capital without escort. No royal fleet followed. No hidden guardians revealed themselves. Only open space greeted them as the stars stretched into bright lines and the vessel entered faster than light travel. Inside the cockpit, gentle engine vibration hummed through the seats. Human design favored function over perfection. Some panels showed scratches. One display flickered faintly before stabilizing. Nothing was flawless. Sarileth found herself staring at those imperfections longer than necessary. "They bother you?" Elias said, adjusting navigation. "They are unexpected," she answered. He nodded. "You'll see a lot of that." Silence settled, but it felt different from the silence of the court. This one was smaller, warmer, almost peaceful. After some time, Sarileth spoke again. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere the Empire doesn't watch closely," Elias said.
A border system. Trade station.
"Mixed species. Real life."
Real.
She repeated quietly. The word carried weight now. Days passed inside the quiet rhythm of travel. Sarileth learned small human habits, how they measured time with meals instead of energy cycles, how they rested even when not required, how they filled silence with music that carried emotion instead of perfection. She tried eating human food once. The taste was overwhelming. She tried again the next day. Failure, she discovered, did not end existence. It only invited another attempt. Each small discovery felt like touching a new universe. Elias watched her carefully but never guided too much. When she asked questions, he answered. When she struggled, he allowed the struggle. It was not cruelty. It was trust. Slowly, something inside her began to change shape. The border station appeared as a scattered ring of metal structures orbiting a dim orange star. Cargo ships moved in uneven patterns. Communication signals overlapped in messy layers. Nothing aligned perfectly. Sarileth felt immediate discomfort. "This place is disordered," she said. "Yeah," Elias replied. "That's what makes it honest." They docked among ordinary traders. No one recognized her. No one cared. Inside the station, sound replaced silence, Voices arguing over prices, machinery clanging, children of several species running through crowded corridors. The air smelled of fuel, spices, and unfamiliar chemicals. Seraph stood very still, overwhelmed. "This is too much," she whispered. Elias spoke gently. "We can leave." She shook her head after a moment. "No." "I want to understand." So they walked forward together into noise and uncertainty. Trouble found them on the third day. It began with watching eyes. 3 figures lingering too long near supply markets, their movements careful in the way of hunters pretending not to hunt. Elias noticed immediately. Border regions taught harsh lessons about survival. He guided Seraph down a quieter corridor. "We're leaving the public levels," he said softly. "Why?" "Because someone is interested in us." Lie. Fear returned, colder this time. Not philosophical fear. Real danger. They moved quickly through maintenance passages, lit by flickering strips. Distant footsteps followed, not hiding anymore. Seraph's breathing grew uneven. "I have no guards," she said. "I know. No weapons. I know." "Then how?" "We think," Elias said calmly. "Humans are good at that." The footsteps closed in. At an intersection of dark corridors, 3 armed raiders emerged. Their armor was mismatched, their eyes sharp with the confidence of predators who believed victory was certain. One looked directly at Seraph and froze in shock. Recognition, even without royal light or crown. Some truths could not hide. "The princess," he whispered. Everything changed in that instant. Powerless royalty was worth more than treasure. Seraph felt terror rise like ice through her body. This was failure. This was consequence. This was the universe beyond protection. She looked at Elias, expecting fear. He only looked focused, quietly calculating distances, shadows, timing. Human survival thinking shaped by a dangerous galaxy. "What?" "Stay behind me," he said. The raiders advanced. What followed was not graceful like Imperial combat training. It was fast, messy, real. Elias used the narrow corridor, the low lights, the element of surprise. He moved with desperate precision, not perfection. Every action carried risk. Every second mattered. But Seraph watched in stunned silence. Humans did not fight like heroes from legend. They fought like beings who refused to die. Within moments, the raiders fled. Wounded pride stronger than courage. Silence returned, broken only by Seraph's unsteady breathing. Elias leaned briefly against the wall, pain hidden but present. "You're hurt?" she said. "Just a little." She stared at him. He had faced danger, without certainty of survival, without destiny protecting him, without perfection, and he had still stood between her and harm. "Why?" she asked softly. "Because you matter," he said. "Not as a princess. As a person." Something inside her heart shifted again. Deeper this time. Not admiration, not obligation. Something warmer and freely growing. That night, in a quiet storage room turned temporary shelter, Seraph sat awake while Elias rested nearby. The station hummed around them, alive with ordinary struggle. She thought about fear, about choice, about pain that did not destroy but revealed. For the first time, her future felt unwritten. She looked at the sleeping human who had refused her perfection yet protected her life. And she understood something new. Love given by design was safe. Love growing through uncertainty was alive. Far away, beyond borders and shadows, the imperial capital still shone in flawless light. But here, in the imperfect dark between stars, something fragile and powerful had begun to form. Not destiny. Not obedience. Choice. The border station slowly disappeared behind their ship as it moved back into the deep dark between stars. No one followed them this time. No hidden enemies revealed themselves. Only quiet space remained, wide and endless. Inside the small human vessel, the air felt different than before, not because anything physical had changed, but because both travelers were no longer the same people who had first stepped aboard. Princess Saralith sat near the forward observation window, watching distant stars stretch into thin lines as the ship entered faster-than-light travel again. The light reflected softly across her face, but it no longer shone with flawless certainty. There were small traces of exhaustion, faint shadows of thought, and something new that had never existed in her before: understanding. Commander Elias Ward adjusted the navigation controls with slow, careful movements. His shoulders still carried quiet pain from the fight on the station, though he had said little about it. Humans often treated pain as something private, something to carry without ceremony, Saralith had noticed. She noticed many things now. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was no longer heavy like the silence of the court. It felt calm, almost gentle, like a space where words were welcome, but not required. At last she turned slightly toward him. "When we return," she said softly, "everything will change." Elias did not pretend otherwise. "Yes," he answered. "My mother will ask what I have learned." He nodded once. "She will." Saralith looked back at the stars. "I am afraid of that moment." "That's normal," Elias said.
Humans feel that way before important things. She considered this. Do humans remain afraid?
"Even when they are strong? Most of the time," he said quietly. "Being brave usually means moving forward while afraid." The idea settled gently inside her thoughts. For the first time, fear did not feel like weakness. It felt like proof that something mattered. The journey back toward Imperial space lasted many days, not because the distance was long, but because neither of them hurried. They stopped at small, quiet worlds along the way, places without grand cities or royal attention. A farming moon where the sky stayed purple even at noon, a water planet where simple floating homes moved slowly with the tides, a lonely research outpost where scientists studied stars that might die in 1,000,000 years. On each world, Saralith walked without title.
No one bowed.
No one praised her perfection. Some did not even notice her. At first, the absence of recognition felt like emptiness. Later, it began to feel like freedom. She spoke with children who asked honest, simple questions. She listened to workers complain about long days and small pay. She watched families share quiet meals without ceremony. Life here was uncertain, sometimes difficult, often imperfect, and yet it was warm in a way the flawless palace had never been. One evening, on the farming moon, she stood beside Elias, under an open sky filled with unfamiliar stars. Wind moved gently through tall silver grass, making a soft sound like distant waves. "This place is not protected," she said. "No," Elias replied. "It is not perfect. No." She looked around, slowly. "But it is peaceful." He smiled faintly. Peace that people build themselves usually lasts longer. She felt that truth settle deep inside her heart. But for the first time she understood what he had tried to explain in the court. Freedom was not the enemy of peace. It was the reason peace could be real. When the imperial capital finally appeared ahead of them, shining like a living jewel in space, Saralith felt two emotions at once: love for her home and distance from it. The ship received silent clearance to dock. No welcoming fleet. No ceremony. The Queen had kept her word. This return would be as honest as the departure. They walked once more through quiet corridors toward the great chamber of the Galactic Court. News of their arrival had already spread. Delegates from countless worlds filled the circular tiers again, waiting to witness the outcome of the trial. But the feeling in the chamber was different now. Before, the silence had been curious. Now, it was expectant. History stood very close. Serelith and Elias stepped into the center together. Queen Althara waited upon her white starstone throne, unchanged in power, unchanged in presence. Yet her eyes searched her daughter's face with something deeper than royal judgment. Concern, hope, love that even eternity could not hide. Now one spoke for several long seconds. At last, the Queen's voice flowed gently through the chamber. "You have returned." "Yes, Mother," Serelith said. "You have walked beyond protection. Yes, you have faced uncertainty." A small breath left Serelith's lips. "Yes." The Queen studied her carefully. "You are different." Serelith did not deny it.
I am. A quiet ripple moved through the gathered court.
The Queen's gaze shifted briefly to Elias, then back to her daughter. "Tell us," she said softly. "What have you learned?" The question echoed across the chamber, carrying the weight of empires and centuries. Serelith felt fear rise again, but this time she did not run from it. She stepped forward, alone. "I learned that perfection is not the same as happiness," she said. Her voice was steady, though gentle. "I learned that protection can also be a cage. I learned that failure does not destroy life. It teaches it." No one moved. She continued, each word simple and clear. "I learned that peace, forced by power, is fragile, but peace chosen freely is strong." Many delegates lowered their heads in thought. Serelith's eyes found her mother's, and I learned what love truly means. The chamber felt suddenly very still. Queen Ialthara asked the question everyone waited to hear. "Do you still choose the human?" A long silence followed. Serelith looked at Elias. He did not speak. He did not move. He gave her the one thing no empire ever had: choice. She felt warmth in her chest, no longer uncertain, no longer fragile. Real. Alive. Free. Slowly, she shook her head. A wave of shock spread through the court, but there was no sadness in her expression.
"I do not refuse him,"
she said gently. "I simply no longer need him to choose me." Understanding began to grow in the silence. "Because now," she continued, "I know how to choose myself, and one day, if love grows naturally between us, it will be real, not given by destiny, not commanded by a throne, only chosen." Tears of light shimmered faintly in the Queen's ancient eyes, something no one present had ever seen. Not grief, pride. The oldest ruler in the spiral understood that her daughter had truly become free. The Queen turned her gaze to Elias. "And you, human," she said quietly, "what have you learned?" Elias took a slow breath. "That even the strongest empires can change," he said, "and that freedom is frightening, but worth it." The Queen held his eyes for a long moment. Then, slowly, she inclined her head, a gesture of respect. Across the chamber, countless species reacted in stunned silence. The ruler of eternity had bowed, slightly, to a mortal human. History shifted in that single motion. Queen Althara rose from her throne and faced the gathered galaxy. "Let it be known," she declared, her voice carrying farther than sound, "that strength does not live only in power. It lives in the courage to allow choice." Light moved through the crystal walls like sunrise. "The Empire will not weaken from this truth," she continued. "It will endure because of it." No cheers followed. No celebration. Only deep, thoughtful silence. the kind that comes when the future changes direction. At the center of that silence stood a human and a princess, no longer bound by destiny, no longer separated by perfection, only two people free to discover what might come next. Far beyond the chamber, stars continued to burn across endless space. But something new had begun in the galaxy. Not conquest, not obedience, choice. And that quiet beginning would shape centuries yet to come.